to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. Hey, one note before we start with today's interview. This interview with Coach Rick Rhoades was recorded before he announced he's going to be the athletic director and head coach at Gregory-Portland. So it refers to him being at Cameron Yo, but you get the idea. All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Rick Rhoades. Coach, it is so good to talk with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Oh, you bet. The first thing we like to do is take a look at your path to getting where you're at. So if you could, just kind of talk us through where you started, whether it's an assistant, however, through present day.
I hope you got a lot of time. I started out as like a lot of coaches. I started out as a junior high coach in Bastrop, Texas. I graduated from at that point it was Southwest Texas, and my parents lived in Bastrop, and so I took a job at Bastrop. I intended to go to graduate school, and I passed up a job at Westlake to go to Bastrop. There's probably not too many guys in their career that have done that, but that's where I started. I was there for 1 year, and I got an opportunity to go to Refugio, and I went to Refugio as a high school coach and worked for Bobby Kelly, and I did that for 3 years. Great experience. I worked with some great coaches there. We had some great athletes there, and a lot of success when I was there. From there, I went back to school from Refugio. I went back to school. I went back to Southwest Texas State University and got a degree in computer science. It took me 2 years to get the degree, and then I actually worked as a programmer for the state of Texas for a year. It was a good job. I made good money, but it's the only job I've ever had where I looked at my watch all day long waiting for it to get to be 5 o'clock. I just couldn't sit behind a desk all day long. And so I did that for a year and decided I was going to get back into what I really loved to do, and that was teaching and coaching. I went to work for Larry Nowotny down in Marque at Marque High School. Larry left Marque and came to New Braunfels Canyon, and I went to New Braunfels Canyon with him. I stayed there for 3 years and then moved over to New Braunfels High and worked for Lou Simmons. And then Jim Streety offered me a position at San Antonio Madison after my year at New Braunfels, and I took that and got to work with Tim Kingsbury, Cliff Kingsbury's dad. After I was at Madison for a year, Tim Kingsbury got the head coaching job back at New Braunfels, and he offered me the defensive coordinator's position to come back with him. So I took that, and I stayed there. We stayed there for 11 years. My last 5 years at New Braunfels, I was the head coach there. And then from there, I decided, that I had an opportunity to go and be the assistant head coach at Converse Judson, and I worked with Jim Rackley. And I took that opportunity and went and worked for him for 2 years, and went to Coppell and worked with Bob Shipley for 2 years, and then became a head coach again when I got the Cameron Yo job.
Wow, and that kind of brings us to the next point. You've got such a great history of other great coaches you've worked with, and I don't think there's a coach in Texas that hasn't had that sort of experience as part of how they got where they're at. Who jumps out to you as one of your most influential coaches?
You know, I tell you, it was. It's hard to say because I've been very blessed in that I've had the opportunity to work with some really good head coaches. As I was coming up, but the one when I first started in Refugio, I worked with a guy by the name of George Harris, and George was the girls track coach, and I was his assistant. And during his time in Refugio, George won 5 state championships in a row in girls track, and I was his assistant for 2 of those. And I think it was really him that kind of laid the foundation and showed me that, if you put the time and effort in, if you have you need to have a goal and then have a plan to accomplish that goal. And if you put the time and effort in to accomplish that goal, that you can accomplish great things. And we were certainly able to do that at Refugio. So I think early in my career, I'd have to say that he was, he was probably the best mentor that I could have. And then later on in my career, like I said, I had an opportunity to go to work at Converse Judson with Jim Rackley. And Jim Rackley is a great guy. I mean, in fact, he came down and talked to our team last week before the Refugio game. And I told our kids, before I went to work with Coach Rackley, I was probably a pretty decent coach. But the things that I learned from him and going through his program really made me, the coach that I am today. And a lot of the success that we have at Cameron Yo right now is a result of me working with Jim Rackley at Converse Judson.
Nice. So what are some of those things that take you from being just a good X's and O coach to one that can win 3, possibly 4 consecutive state champions?
Well, I think that you learn about how important the team is and how you build your team. For us, we build our team around our defense and just things, and things within the program. In our program, we do a boot camp very similar to Judson. We have competition days that I think will really make, separate us from most people, and just things like that, little things that I was able to pick up on. And then just, I tell you, when I went to Converse Judson, I'll tell you this. That was the first place that I'd ever been where I openly saw coaches just flat hug kids.
Yeah.
And those kids knew how much those coaches cared for them because they loved those kids. And I learned that from being there, and it really made a difference. It made a difference in how I coached and how I wanted my teams to be.
Nice. And that's I think kind of a real important thing that gets lost. People around the country pay attention to Texas high school football, and they're like, wow, Texas has such great athletes. I think the core to all of that, and the reason we're doing this show, is Texas has the best high school coaches. And I think it's an institution-wide thing where we've created this, this whole thing around caring for the athletes, not just teaching them how to throw and how to run. So,
right.
I think that's huge.
I agree with you 100%. I think we do have the best high school coaches in the state of Texas, bar none.
No doubt. Give me a story that comes to mind, whether it's, a game or an interaction with an athlete or just anything. When you think back, somebody says, what do you love about coaching Texas high school football? What pops into your mind?
I think the thing that pops into my mind is the relationships that I've had with the kids. In 2010, we played Lago Vista in the semifinals, and we were fortunate to win that game. And a kid by the name of Deontay Holt came up and gave me a hug after the game, and just the look in his eyes, and how excited he was, and we were getting to go to the finals and play Dangerfield because we won that game, and just those kind of moments right there where you just you realize, boy, you're doing something for these kids that they really appreciate and they really understand, and so I think and the fact that I wake up every day. There's never been a day in my coaching career where I've woke up and said, man, I really don't want to go to work today. I get up every day, and I'm excited about going to work because because we got, I get to work with kids, and I get to make a difference in kids' lives. And I think that's the key is that, you can do other things in your life. Like I said, I was a computer programmer. I probably could have made a lot more money doing that than what I'm making now as a head football coach. But I darn sure couldn't have made the difference in kids' lives that I'm making right now.
Nice, yeah, and that says it all. And again, that's why I've been so adamant in the 12 years we've been covering Texas high school football to point out coaches, because I know, even back 100 years ago when I played, that relationship with the coach, there's something about it. It's more powerful sometimes than a relationship you have with your own parent. And, it's happening across the state in every school. So I can't thank you enough for playing your role in that.
No, well, it's a magical deal. I mean, when you really think about it, I can tell you every coach, and I bet you can too, can tell me every coach that you ever had. Yep. But when you ask me about my English teachers or, things like that, I have difficulty, remembering their names. But for whatever reason, well, those coaches, I know why it is. It's because they had such an impact on my life. But I know, I can tell you about each and every one of them.
Yeah, definitely. How about you? What personal goals, coaching goals, personal goals do you have that you still are shooting for?
That's a good question. I kind of got, like I said, I was a head coach in the Braunfels for 5 years. Then I stepped down and became an assistant again for the next 4 years before I got an opportunity to get back into it again. And so I was a little bit late getting into the head coaching game. I think probably, my goal is that I'd like to accomplish is I'd like to accomplish 200 wins before I retire. And so, I'm 55 years old. I'm sorry, my wife's going to get on me. I'm 56 years old. And I think I'm sitting at, maybe 115 or 114 or something like that right now. And so, if I could get 85 more wins in before I retire, that would be, I would feel really good about that.
Nice. Well, I think you have a really good chance of that, and wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us.
No problem. I certainly appreciate y'all having me on the show.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Hey, coaches, we want to tell your story as well. So get in touch with us, and we'll schedule a time to record your interview so we can add your history, your insight to what we hope will be an amazing collection of wit and wisdom from Texas high school football coaches. Thanks for listening. This show is brought to you by the book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My Texas High School Football Coach, a handbook of wisdom for parents, young people, and yes, even coaches. This book will be available in ebook format on Amazon's Kindle store, iTunes, and wherever electronic books are sold. But you can purchase an advanced copy at a discounted rate by heading over to learnedfromcoach.com. That's learnedfromcoach.com. Thanks again.